Welcome to Plant-Based Chat, my new weekly interview show. And today I have my good friend Anu with me, which is super exciting. We met, how many years ago was it, Anu?
I think it's 7.
It's been a long time. It seems in a way like it was yesterday, and then it seems like we've known each other forever. And you guys, wherever you're watching, be sure to come in and say hi. Let me know how the weather is. It's very sunny, as you can see behind me. And in a news house, it is very cloudy in Chicago. So we want to know where it's like where you are too. So these plant-based chats are about a few different things so that we can bring new people into the community who I really like and think you should know. Anu is an amazing Indian cook, and I love her recipes, and I point to her recipes a lot from mine. And I asked her what she wanted to make, and she had a really great idea, and I'm super excited about that. And if you guys are doing comments, for some reason I'm not getting any comments at this moment. So I'm not sure what that's about, but it's okay. If you haven't commented, comment and let me see if it's just lagging or something like that. Okay, so this is Anu from Simmer to Slimmer, and I'm going to let her tell you a little bit about herself.
Hello, everyone. And Kathy, thank you for inviting me to your show. So I'm Anushree. I go by Anu, and I blog at Simmer to Slimmer. The reason I started Simmer to Slimmer was because I would try all these new recipes at home and I just couldn't remember it. Like the next time I would try to make it, I could not reproduce it. So my husband's like, "Can you make it the way that you made it last time?" I was like, "Okay, I'll try." So I was like, "Okay, it's about time I document my recipes so that I can recreate them." So that was the initial idea when I first started Simmer to Slimmer. It wasn't meant to be like for the outside world, but just, and I think, Kathy, most people will say that that's how they started their blog as well,
It's true. A
right?
lot of food bloggers really do, especially people who've been blogging more than a couple of years. Like it's a little different now because, like, I think some people are starting now because they're starting it as their business. But most people that have been blogging over 7 years started it as what we call a hobby blog, which means it was for our friends and families. And I did the same thing. So I agree with you. And Anu, do you concentrate on any specific part of Indian cuisine? Because India is such a diverse, magical place when it comes to food.
So I grew up in Bombay, and the good thing about it is that you get exposed to every kind of Indian cooking there, be it at home or be at restaurants. My mother mostly made South Indian food, but like I lived in an apartment complex where there were so many other communities living, so it was a very good way to experience different kinds of Indian food. So that's how my journey of experiencing Indian food started very, very young when I was in Mumbai.
Oh, that's awesome. And I guess I only know about some places, and I didn't experience South Indian food until I came to Durham. It's really interesting to me. So I only had North Indian food for most of my life. And then I found
And
out
you're so
about,
right.
yeah, and it's
Yeah.
all delicious. So there, but like the whole Uttapam dosa, extravaganza is magic. And now that I can't have gluten, if I make a batch of dosa or Uttapam batter, I can make a tortilla substitute. I can make a flatbread substitute. And I mean, I know I'm using non-Indian words, and it's basically like an Uttapam without stuff in it that I cook on both sides. And it's just such a magical way of seeing like beans and grains turn into these magical things. I just love it. And
Of
I'm going to put up a few greetings here while you're talking. So, will you say your South Indian food is one of your favorites, or do you just like everything a little bit, or is there even another cuisine? There's no reason for me to pigeonhole you. Because I could eat Indian food 3 times a day, every day for the rest of my life. No, no
so
question.
first of all, let me tell you this. When I think we first met and you mentioned Uttapam, you just like blew my mind. I was like, oh my God, somebody knows Uttapam. Because Indian restaurants are popular in North Indian curry. right? So it's like everybody's familiar with chana masala or a rajma, kidney beans curry,
Mm.
and chicken tikka masala, paneer makhni. But when you said uttapam, I was like, oh my God, she's my friend. So,
We bonded. It really was. We
yeah.
bonded right then. She's like, oh, because I'm always like, ooh, when she said she's from India, I'm like, ooh, I bet she can teach me some cool new food. And I do that with everyone. It doesn't matter where you're from. You could be from Indiana, and I'll be like, what do they have in Indiana that I don't know about?
So I did grow up eating a lot of South Indian food, and my parents originally come from Mangalore. It's a state, sorry, it's a city in Karnataka, which is a state in the southern part of India. But the food that we eat there, it's not commonly found in restaurants here. So
Oh.
it's mostly a coastal city, and the food. Though there are few things that you must have heard are probably idli, sambar, but it's a very specialized cuisine. So initially, when I started blogging, I would blog a lot about those recipes too.
Okay,
And
and like
then,
Italy and
yeah,
Sambar, and you're cutting out just a little bit, so you might have to speak
okay,
up. Anu has this beautiful, sweet, soft voice, unlike my booming, loud voice. But
funny.
I know you were talking about Sambar in Italy, which is another thing. And tell me this: do you have to make Italy from a different batter, or do you make it from the same batter from dosa udapam batter? I've heard
The
different
same
things.
batter. That's how my mom used to make and my
Okay.
grandmom used to make. So we just follow the same recipe.
Okay. And that's what I thought. And I got side eyed by someone. They're like, it's not the same recipe. And I was like, I don't make them, but I want to make them because they're for those of you who don't know, they're like these steamed roundish cakes. Because how would you put it? They
Yeah.
look like flying
It's like a
saucer
night.
shaped.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard to describe. It's like, that's what I see. It's a steamed rice cake, but it has a puff in between, right? Like it's
Yeah,
not exactly, yeah,
on the
like a,
top and the bottom, and it's really fluffy. And I had a friend who ate some on an Indian buffet, and she was totally not impressed. However, she ate it by itself. And then when I go to Indian restaurants, especially when Kalpana had hers, and it was very interesting because A, she taught me a lot, and B, there are a lot of Indian bachelors in Morrisville, North Carolina. And they
that's
all came
interesting.
there for their lunch. And so I could see how people were eating things more traditionally than if you just went. So I noticed that idli was always in a soup broth,
Yeah.
right? And that's where all
Yeah,
the flavor is.
definitely. Like you eat an idli just like that, it has no flavor in itself. And it like tastes so bland. But I think the minute you dip it into sambar, the magic begins.
It's true because the thing is sambar, it looks kind of, if you're just looking at it, you're not smelling it or tasting it, it looks kind of like our boring vegetable soup. But it's not. It's got so many different spices and flavors and vegetables and drumstick, which not the drumstick we vegans can't have, but and you probably pronounce it, but is it morgonia?
Moringa.
Moringa. See that goes on my long list of things that Kathy can't pronounce. That's why I like to say drumstick, not so I seem fancy.
No, to be honest, I grew up learning it as drumsticks. I never heard of the word moringa until it became popular. Everybody now puts moringa powder everywhere, right? So I was like, oh, it's moringa.
And it's very true too. And I do think there's so much great about Indian food and culture and flavors that we have so much to learn from. And I feel like the more over my life, the more I ate Indian food, the more I learned to appreciate spices and how they go together in a different way. Because I think a lot of just, I hate to say American food because is there American food? I guess cheeseburgers and french fries and other things that have no seasoning or very little seasoning. Um, oh, and Kathy's there. Sorry, I'm putting up some comments.
Hi, Kathy.
And yeah, we've got
Hello.
all kinds of people here. We've got Apple and Jackie and Kathy Sabo and the Pot Thickens, which is a great blog name. And Jackie was saying she didn't try Indian food until after she became vegan. So many new flavors to try when you expand your veggie list. And that's so true, right?
That's
Just
true, totally.
because when you become vegetarian or vegan now, like in 1983, becoming vegetarian was a big deal. And you have to find out how to flavor some of these things. And I was introduced to Indian food not as soon as I would like. I think I was probably vegetarian for about 4 years because I was in a small town and it was the early 80s. So like Chinese restaurants. Like I didn't go to an Ethiopian restaurant either until I was in grad school. And that's when I got introduced to Ethiopian food, Indian food, more Japanese food. And I think that really broadens everything out. And and the Pot Thickens grows her own methi in her garden last year, which is
Oh, wow. That's
awesome.
amazing. We love methi around here.
And before I had to be gluten free, I had paratha stuffed with methi leaves.
Oh my
Oh, it
God,
was
they're so
so
good.
good. And she said she can't get them in North Dakota. And I'm assuming you're a she. If you're not, please correct me, and I'll fix that. And says South Indian food is as much about the process as it is spices and flavors. And I do like because it's the warmer climate, right? There's more fermentations and things like
Exactly.
that. Um, and I think though and you tell me, it seems as if yogurt it permeates all the different areas as far as a fermentation. Would you say it's more one
Yeah, I would
area?
agree. Totally. Yeah.
Okay. Um,
Milk and yogurt are like such a huge part of Indian culture. So I think that's one thing common across India.
and that
Hi,
makes sense.
Vijay.
And the pot thickens is him, he. I will correct that.
Okay,
Absolutely. I'm used to, if you go to a blogger conference, like it's like 95% women most of the time.
that's true.
so, um, so I know today you're going to do a spice blend. Now, it's not our normal garam masala that I've kind of taught people. And though you have a great garam masala recipe on Simmer to Slimmer, so you guys should go check some of her recipes out for sure. And garam masala is something that's used in a lot of stews. And
That's right.
chaat masala, which is what we're going to do today, I'm going to let you explain.
So chaat masala and garam masala are two different things. Garam masala is used when you're still cooking, but chaat masala is sprinkled over the food when you're done cooking. And chaat
Ooh.
masala, so garam masala is more like a warming spice, and chaat masala is that extra kick that you when you eat it. It's mostly used on like Indian street food, but you can also use it in raita, yogurt drip, sprinkle it over fruits, then on paneer, on tofu. It just like brings the food alive. It's tangy, and it has this umami flavor,
Mm.
which makes it like like I literally use it every day. It also has medicinal properties, but I don't want to go there. I
Okay.
could drop a link later, but it's just this. I call it like my special spice, which brings the food alive, whatever it is.
I love the idea of that because I know when I go to an Indian restaurant, and I love chats. Like I really miss samosa chaat. That's the thing I miss the most. I've made a gluten-free samosa, but it's still not as, and I'm baking it, so it's not as good as chaat masala you get out. um, but, or even the aloo tiki, different things. There's one restaurant where I am, I think it's on Friday night buffets. They used to have the chaat buffet where you could put all the little crispy things and some chickpeas and different things, and they would have different dried spices. And I'm assuming one would be this chaat masala, but I love the
Yes.
idea of brightening it up, adding this extra punch and umami instead of using like finishing salt, which just is kind of a one note sort of
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, the main components of chaat masala are like dried mango powder and black salt. So black salt actually is pink in color, So because they're
Vegans know
made
black
from black
salt.
salts.
So we know what kala namak is. But
Oh my God, you impress me every day.
no.
Awesome.
That's because I have everybody go to the Indian market to get it. Because you can go to the first time I had it, I went to the specialty store. I paid almost $10 for a little jar of kala namak, which you've
That's
been in the
true.
Indian market and you're like,
Yeah.
no.
No, don't.
It's so inexpensive, and it's a great way to support your local markets as well, because then they bring in things like, in my local markets I can get fresh methi leaves and fresh curry leaves, and so it's a great circle to be in. But what vegans particularly use kala namak in is egg dishes. So I put it in tofu scramble
Yeah.
and a tofu egg salad, right? Because it gives that sulfury egg taste. And what I found so interesting, because I found that first and then went to the Indian markets and ate more Indian food, is that when it's used like in these chaat masalas or different spice blends or in foods, you don't really taste that eggy taste the same way. When you
True.
look for it, you can after you know, but like, so we use quite a bit because it seems to be a little bit lower sodium than like table salt, so I can use more kala namak to get that egg flavor in without it feeling too salty. But yeah, no, and that should be in every plant-based pantry.
Oh, interesting.
And
That's so good
tell
to
us, what's the name? I know mango powder, there's another name for it when we go to the Indian market we should be looking for.
know. Amchur.
Say
Amchur. It's like
amchu.
means mango. So it's like amchur. It's like powdered mango.
I like that. And it smells beautiful.
Oh yeah, yeah. And so I use it in as a replacement for lime juice, especially in okra. Like when you introduce water, it becomes slimy, right? So that's why instead of using lime juice, I just sprinkle amchur powder over it, and it gives the tang. So it's pretty awesome too. Like those are my two favorite spices. Like apart from, of course, the million under Indian spices that we use, but these two are like absolute flavor enhancers.
Oh, I love that. And it's always good to have something that can be kind of tangy like lemon juice and lime juice, because you might not have it on hand, or you might be me and go to get it and realize I bought that a really, really long time ago and it's past its prime. Well, would you like to show us about making it, and I can move you to the one screen?
Oh, sure.
You
Let
want
me
to do
adjust
that?
my camera.
Okay, and just take your time, and you can move it however you need to. So Anu is going to be showing us how to make chaat masala, and she was mentioning a few of the ingredients. And do you
All right.
you're going to be sautéing the spices to make the blend?
That's true. There are only three spices that I'm going to be sauteing. So I'll go through them as I begin. So let
Okay,
me start the gas.
perfect. And the plot thickens says he needs one of those pans. I'm feeling that same way.
So I got these cast iron from an Indian store. So you could probably find it in a Patel Brothers next to you.
Oh, that's
So the
great.
reason I like this cast iron pans is because it's like thick bottom. Anybody who deals with spices and who roasts spices will tell you that never use a thin. These are best because they don't burn your spices as much. So there are only three spices that we are going to actually saute. So the first one being coriander seeds.
Coriander seeds, whole coriander seeds, and those are also good in Mexican food.
That's true. And here we have the jeera seeds or the cumin seeds.
Those are so good.
And the black peppercorns.
Okay. And Anu, I know this is probably not the question that you would think. This isn't authentic, but if some of my listeners don't have the seeds but have the powders, could they do this but maybe just saute a little less to make sure they don't burn the spice?
No, they don't need to saute it then. They can just use it as is.
Okay.
So I'm just going to saute it. It doesn't need a lot of sauteing, maybe 30 seconds. You'll be able to smell it, like, the aroma fills the house.
I agree. And I say the same thing. So sometimes, even when I'm toasting just oats, rolled oats, I ask people to smell them several times because if you smell in the beginning when you put it in and it's cold, you will really see when the aroma blossoms.
Yeah, it's just like, spread it out, and the spices will also change color. You barely need a few minutes with it.
And Kathy's asking, so chaat masala is a blend seasoning, and it is. So it's a blend of different spices that we're going to be using.
Yeah, as it's roasting, I'll introduce the other spices. So this is the kala namak that I was talking to you about, which is pink in color. Kala namak is black salt, and like Kathy and I spoke about it, the black salt, the crystals. So when you powder them, they turn into this beautiful pink color.
Which is so crazy. Everybody always looks for the black color. I think when they first look for
I
it.
would always wonder initially when I started cooking, why is it called namak when it's like so beautiful pink color? And this is the amchur powder, the dried mango powder.
Oh.
This is one of my favorite spices, which is ajwain, which is carom seeds. They're awesome when you have a tummy ache. They have medicinal properties.
Oh.
And there are some other spices that I'm using. This is dried ginger powder, salt, hing or asafoetida, and these are dried mint leaves. So dried mint leaves are optional. I understand not everybody has dried mint leaves in their house, and even dried ginger powder is optional. So when I was recreating this recipe, it was from, like, I used to buy store bought chaat masala and I used to totally love them. Let me roast the spices so that they don't get
And
burned.
it's true. So like when you go to the Indian market, if you're not used to going, and I always bring home at least two things I haven't necessarily seen before, either a drink mix or a seasoning mix or something, and then I come back and research it. But
So I
think with
reverse engineered the recipe. So it had dried mint leaves. So I adjusted the amount till it felt like it was like the store bought that I used. So I did not use a lot of chaat masala as growing up in India. Because my mom made more South Indian food, so we never stored chaat masala at home, and she was not the one to make a lot of Indian street food at home. So I would savor them at my friend's place. But then, like when I started cooking, I just got hooked to chaat masala, and I literally use it like wherever I can. Sometimes I use it with okra too. So I think
that
this is done. We'll just let it cool for 5 to 10 minutes. Usually, I let it cool for 5 to 10 minutes, but right now we can go ahead and blend it. The reason we let it cool is that so it has a longer shelf life, and we're not introducing moisture in the chaat masala. So, Kathy, I'm going to blend this along with all the other spices that I've mentioned. So,
okay.
it's all going to go into my Plenty blender here. And you can use a spice grinder too if you want, but I use my blender and work fine.
And
Just going to
so
turn it towards me.
the plot thickens says, could you add a pinch of hing to this, or is it not usually done for chaat masala? On the plate that she showed, she had hing, she had
Yeah.
dried mint leaves, dried ginger powder, and salt. Am I missing anything else?
No, you got it
Okay.
all.
And I wanted to ask you this too. So some of the people watching maybe are on salt-free diets. Would
Okay.
you suggest just leaving out the salt or adding some sort of, I have a plain salt substitute that I tell people, which is 1 tablespoon ground garlic powder, 1 tablespoon onion powder, and 1 teaspoon ground celery seed that's mixed together, because it doesn't add too much other flavors. Like it's not like Mrs. Smith's grand herbal bouquet salt substitute,
No, I
or
think you
just
should
leave it.
totally omit it.
Okay.
That's okay. Because the black salt has enough saltiness on its own. So it's okay if you cannot use that salt,
Okay,
feel free to omit
great.
it.
And don't forget, you guys, wherever you're watching this, above, to the sides, to below, there is a link to Anu's recipe. So you can go to her site and get the full recipe. And I'm sure she has a print button if you want to print it too.
So Kathy, I'm going to blend this. It's going to be a little loud because it's blend tech.
It'll be
So if you
okay.
want to mute me, go ahead and do that.
Okay, we'll see. If it's bad, I'll mute you, I promise.
Okay. So I'm going to turn so that you can see me blending.
And like she said, you could use a spice grinder, or if you're doing a larger amount, sometimes using your Blendtec Vitamix or even a Ninja blender will often do well enough. I love my spice grinder attachment that I have for the Ninja that they aren't making anymore, so it gives you a little more power than a regular spice grinder. But if you hang out with me, you probably have gotten a spice grinder by now. I just love that pan though. Isn't it? And Deborah's saying it's a cool pan too. It is such a cool pan.
Let me see if I can find it on Amazon and maybe I'll link it for you.
Please do, and just link it right into the YouTube video, sure, especially. Oh, and Apple is saying they're peeking at your Instagram account, and it's so colorful and beautiful. And it's true.
Thank you.
Almost as colorful and beautiful as a new is. And in that sweater especially, you've got like all the colors going on today. I love it.
This is my favorite sweater. I just like literally wear it every other day. So I've just added all the spices and I'm just going to blend it.
Okay. And the pot Thickens says he has several old coffee grinders that he uses for various spice blends. One for Indian Mexican flavors, one for Italian herbs and spices. And if it gets loud, I'll mute. I'm waiting for you. Okay. Let's see what it.
Yep.
Okay, I'll mute it for just a minute. And one of the things I'll say is you can get old coffee grinders too at thrift stores often. Here, I'll unmute it. And I run white rice through it to get some of the coffee flavor and aroma out of it. And you can do that. Ooh, that was so fast.
Yeah, right. It barely takes any time. And it makes about like half a cup.
That looks like more than half a cup.
Yeah, right. It's probably 1 cup. Let me see.
And I mean that in the best way, because I'm like...
I totally get it.
And with the plot thickens says that the coffee grinder is a great suggestion about getting it at the thrift store. But just remember, you may have to grind a lot of white rice to get really old coffee flavor out of there. But if you're using some stronger things like starting with Mexican chilies or Indian spices, that's a good place to start. You can also get now coffee grinders with like 2 grinding cups that are interchangeable, so you could use one for coffee and one for your spices. I think I have that on Amazon, a couple of them bookmarked. They're usually between $30 and $40. Okay, and Kathy wants to know, why were some spices heated and other spices not? That's a great question.
So usually let me fix this. Usually the spice powders are not heated. The spices are roasted to bring out the flavor.
Now,
does that answer your question?
I think it does. Now, I'm going to be controversial then, probably.
Yeah, go ahead.
Like I always am. So since we don't use oil in most of the recipes, I give everybody oil-free options. So even if I'm doing powders and maybe I'm going to make a curry or something, I call it activating it on the heat. Like literally, it's almost not long at all, but because some of the older spices seem to bloom, the way they bloom in the oil, I feel like they also bloom a little bit in the heat. So that could be why Kathy's confused, because I do it that way.
I got it. No, whatever works for you, Kathy, but mostly like when we cook Indian, and that's what I've been taught. And I've never tried, like maybe sometimes you need to break the stereotype and try it out. So it's always whole spices that were roasted and ground. And even while cooking, right, like you do, like when you use spice powders, like coriander powder, cumin powder, you do add them in oil and roast them, but not for long. But you never dry roast them. But I've never tried oil-free cooking, and you have. So you come from that experience.
Well, and I think there's another thing we have to keep in in consideration too, and I'll go to two-person for just a minute because I feel like I'm talking at you. So I'm looking down because I'm looking at Anu while I'm doing all that. So I think one thing that's not being talked about as much. So when you go to an Indian market, like even a small amount of Indian spice, like the small bags are probably at least a half cup, and the big
Yeah, I
bags
would
are
say.
like a pound of a spice.
Mhm.
And one of the reasons I tell everyone to there's spices at, well, there's more than one reason. Buy your spices at the Indian market if you can, except for chilies, which you'll get from the Hispanic market. But it's cheaper, so much cheaper, because they're selling things in bulk and they're so much fresher. Like, and spices, like, you see it like Harris Teeter or Kroger's, those bottles are marked up sometimes at 800 or 1,000%. And I can't imagine coming from India and seeing that. It's like, why is that cumin gold, right? But I think what happens, one of the reasons that Indian families buy in bulk already, but you guys are using your spices so much more than we are. So someone might
That's
buy
true.
a small jar of cumin and use it for 6 months to a year.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think knowing that people do that, and at that point, if your cumin powder's a little old, a little heat really helps it. But I bet that you are using yours so much fresher.
That's true.
And I don't know. And if you feel like I'm misinterpreting any of this, please correct me.
No, not at all, Kathy. I always tell you this, you're more Indian than I am.
No. Well,
Because you've studied spices so much. Like it's always an interesting conversation when I have talk about spices with you, because there's somebody who more than so you are like an honorary Indian already.
I'll take that, especially if that means I get to eat Indian food every day, because I just love it. And we could have a little bit of this conversation, which I wasn't planning on. So like I always worry a little bit because I don't ever want to seem like I'm trying to co-opt any culture, because I'm not. And then sometimes I get nervous as like a super pasty white girl, well, white middle-aged lady, which then just adds a whole other stereotype on top of me that I have to fight. I want to make sure, like, I would never say Kathy's kidney bean curry, right? Because it's rajma. Now, I might say kidney bean curry, rajma, so that people will feel less intimidated. But sometimes there's a thing with me between trying to decide saying Indian inspired, because I always want to give that nod. I didn't come up with Indian food. I love it. And I also, nothing I make I feel like is truly authentic, because I'm making it plant-based, I'm making it oil-free, with oil-free options, gluten-free options, salt-free options, refined sugar-free options, and sometimes nut-free options. So, and it's not that I don't love the original, it's just I want to take that, I don't know, let me think of like a korma, right? That maybe has cashews and coconut cream and lighten that up. So therefore it's not this beautiful rich thing. Maybe I made a cream with oats, right? So, but not
Yeah.
to just say that I would never say that the original korma is bad, because it was delicious and I will remember it my entire life. But how do you feel about that? Like, what things do you like to see? If you have an opinion, and we didn't talk about this at all, so I sprung it on you. But it's just when you say things
It's
like I'm
totally
an
okay.
honorary Indian, then it makes me feel a little nervous, like, oh, I don't want to mess this up, for sure, because
No,
I
not at
have a
all. I
passion
think,
for the food. I really do.
and I think food should be inclusive, right? It doesn't matter who's making it. And I feel there's no authentic recipe. I mean, there are certain recipes which have to be made a certain way to, get that authentic taste. Otherwise, it's a little off. But I think, like, I make Mexican food at home. I make Thai food and I make like Italian food. That's my take. And that's how, like, I like to introduce the food to my family or my friends. So it's totally okay to have your own take, right? Like, not everybody should be following our own recipe. And like, I think the controversy comes in when everybody says this is the authentic way to make it. And I say there's no authentic way to make anything.
Well,
It's
and
the yeah, and I've had people who to argue with me on my mother's recipe on how to make a Mangalorean curry. And I would be like, that's how my mother used to make it. That's how it's authentic to me, in that way. Like, you can't tell me, oh, I have to use tamarind and cannot use tomatoes because people 50 years ago never used tomatoes in curries. So I was like, okay, like, but that's my mom's way and it's authentic to me. And Kathy, whatever you cook, like out of love, and it's your authentic way to cook and introduce the food to your audience. So I am like totally okay. And I love the fact that you are so like passionate about Indian cooking and cooking in general and spices. And I'm all of you when you try all these recipes without oil, without gluten free. That's such an amazing thing to do. So hard to recreate those using non unusual spices or unusual ingredients.
And it's true. I feel like one of my things, and I want to say this in case people didn't see this, Gina was saying, I think there is an enthusiastic appreciation of culture, and then separately there's appropriation. And they often get combined, which they're not. And I also talked to my friend Sandra Gutierrez, who like she's my friend and she's super fancy. She's like in the Smithsonian about Latin American cooking, and she's done all this stuff. And I brought her. She helped me with my tamale recipe, and I brought her a hot sauce I made, and I was so nervous. Oh my gosh, because I just made it up. It has nothing to do with anybody's culture, in particular. And she's asked me to bring it every time I make it. Like, she really likes it. It's not something she could put in the Smithsonian. It's basically margarita jalapeno hot sauce, which sounds pretty daggone American to me. But I think this is my opinion, and this is what I have seen that I see as cultural appropriation. And that is not to say that I don't make any missteps, and I want to make that super clear to everybody watching. Because I don't consider any of my food authentic. Even my red beans and rice, which I make a lot, I don't use sausage in it. I don't use fat in it. So that just changes it a little bit. But the people I see that often I feel are culturally appropriating things are often white male chefs that say things like, this is the best Thai curry ever. Because what I will tell you is like, this is the best dose of filling I've ever made.
Exactly.
Right? But that's a very different thing to go, yeah, my dose of filling is the best. And I know a lot of you have heard the story, and I think you know this too, because I think I told you that day. But it was the lady I go to a small Indian market most of the time, and she shamed me into making dosa batter because I was buying. It was awesome though. No, it was like one of the highlights of my life.
Okay.
Because my friend Kalpana had taken me to the Indian market and showed me, and the woman was like, you don't need anyone to come here with you. I will help you. I'm like, you go. And then I had found a whole grain dosa batter that had like quinoa and brown rice. It was very healthy, and I was buying it. And then one day she looks at me, and she goes, you can make that. And I went, I can. And she has faith in me. And that's what got me to make my own dosa batter. And
that's pretty amazing.
Yeah. And so she empowered me to do something, which is why I like to take these things and go empower other people to do them. Because actually making dosa batter is pretty easy, and making uttapam is the laziest way to do it. And I only started making dosas at home over the pandemic because I was like, oh, and I've seen everybody do it, with the little spoon and spreading it out. And I'm like, oh, I know I'll never be able to do that, right? So, but you can. And that's one of the things that I really like. And Apple says that they're glad I brought up cultural appropriation and being aware, because I do, I feel like we all have some responsibility. And one of the things that's part of my mission, besides making healthy eating easier and tastier, is let's break out of our comfort zones. Let's go to the Hispanic market, the Indian market, the Asian market, where we're getting fresher, better things. We're meeting more of our neighbors. We're supporting small businesses. And I feel super passionate about that, because I think that's how, it's a small thing, but it's a small
Yep, I totally agree. And like, even like me growing up eating South Indian food and like some North Indian food, like coming to the US has, introduced me to so many different cuisines. Gina says she's Mexican and Jewish, so she knows about the controversy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, yeah, and I think you put it spot on. You can't say like this is the best Thai curry, this is the best butter chicken, or this is my version, which I think my family loves, and you can introduce it that way, and that's when I think people get mad and say that, oh, this is not the authentic way to make it or whatever. Right? I remember I posted a recipe and I called it an authentic Mangalorean curry, a fish curry it was, and people was like, "Man, oh, it's how they were commenting on authentic, and it's like I am from Mangalore, I am making it, but still they were debating whether it was authentic or not. So I was like, okay, I should not use authentic in my recipes anymore.
It's getting interesting because a lot of people are touchy, and some people are touchy
Yeah,
for really good reasons. Some people are having things taken away from them. Like I'm even learning sometimes some of my Southern cuisine should be credited in a little bit different way, right? Because maybe it came from Africa and not Georgia or something like that. So I think we're at a point where we're growing and learning and understanding better. And I think that you're always going to have some arrogant chefs that think their everything is the best everything. I don't, and so Kathy was saying, scratching my head trying to figure out what cultural appropriation meant. And that's a great thing. So let's talk about that one more time. So cultural appropriation would be, an example is if I then, Anu teaches me her chaat curry, or chaat masala, I'm so sorry. And then I take it and I say it's my new take on Mexican sprinkle or something, or if I just take it out of context, like I know what Anu is going to, one thing that she's going to show us with this. And I'm going to compare it to a Mexican spice that is often used to do the same thing. But if I also just took it and said, this is my new fruit sprinkle, you're going to love it. It's an amazing blend that I crafted myself. That would be me taking something she learned in her culture and making it mine. Now, I do different blends all the time. I've done some Middle Eastern blends. I do some studying. I smell up my blend, so they're Kathy blends. So even my kibbe blend is my kibbe blend. It's not the authentic kibbe blend that and also kibbe is meat inside of meat, which I had mushrooms inside of millet, right? So we could not get any further from a tradition than that. So it's taking someone else's tradition and owning it as if you created it. And I think a lot of that happened with colonization. Like I'm thinking with Indian, like the way a curry is very popular in the UK, right? It's not
that's true.
necessarily an authentic Indian dish, but it has been kind of appropriated or taken and kind of now, and maybe for good reason. Maybe you don't want to be associated necessarily with the British curry, but you know what I mean? So that's what it means. Or like if I said, my tacos are the most authentic tacos you'll ever taste. I can make some mushroom tacos that taste like tacos that I had in Mexico, but that's not my brand new idea. So hopefully that helps. Okay, and Kathy gave us a thumbs up. So now that we've had this long cultural conversation as well that I brought you into, but thank you for your feedback and talking about that too, because I think it's important for us to think about as we become more global cooks and to become aware of, do we feel like we're taking something from someone, or are we really trying to share that? And I will tell one more story, which is Sandra Gutierrez, who was from Guatemala, has been in Cary for decades. She got some flack about doing Southern recipes. So it's happened the other way as well. And so it's going to be interesting as the decades move forward and we are a more global society. I think just making sure that we respect, like for me, it's all about respecting, sharing that information, and like, because doses and udapams are awesome and easy and nutritious, right?
Yeah,
And
totally.
And for me, I'm like, everybody has to know about this, which is different than if I went, everybody needs to know my recipe, right? So do I have a recipe? Yes. Is it the only unique original one? Probably not. I ferment it in an Instant Pot. Do you need an Instant Pot to make dosa batter? Absolutely not.
No.
So
Yeah. I know people get really mad when I share how I ferment my batter in the Instant Pot sometimes because, oh, we do this before Instant Pot. I am like, this is one way where you can ferment batter in the Instant Pot. And it's a fail-proof method because sometimes, it's inconsistent, but people get mad with that too. But I'm like, it's okay. Like, whatever works for you, use that method. Like boiling eggs in the Instant Pot. It's like, you can use stovetop. Why are you using this? So people have all these angry messages that they leave you, no matter what. But I think when it comes to food, when you make it with love, and sometimes that's all the ingredients that we have, I don't mind anybody trying to recreate a vegetable korma in their way, right? And it's one way of sharing their love for the cuisine and sharing their love to the family with using food. So
I love that. I want to make sure everyone heard that. So it's about sharing the love, like sharing the love of food and sharing that love with your family through food. And we are so in sync on that so much. And I mean, I'm just waiting for you to build your new house in North Carolina. She just built a house in Chicago, so I don't think it's happening soon. So that we can just hang out and cook together more, because I felt so excited to get to see you this month. I mean, it's been 3 years since I've gotten
yeah,
to
it's been 3 years.
see you.
I think we've seen each other every year since 2015, one way or the other.
It's true. So we usually see each other going to blogging conferences and things like that. So I'm going to put you back on full screen and let you demonstrate how we're going to eat our chaat masala once we make it, and maybe talk about a few other ways we could use it too.
Sure. So it made about, if I can adjust the camera. So it's about 3/4 cup. And I'm going to put it back in this glass.
Now, do you usually store those in airtight containers?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
that's very important. Let me adjust it so that you can see what I'm doing. So, Kathy, I'm going to make raita with this. It's a
Ooh.
yogurt dip.
And so for those of you that are plant-based, there's lots of plant-based yogurts you can get right now, made with almonds, cashews, or soy. Just make sure you're getting the unsweetened plain. You don't want to do this accidentally with vanilla sweetened yogurt.
Yep, great point.
So Cheryl uses the vanilla soy milk to cook like mac and cheese sometimes.
So these are called Boondi. They are chickpea. I don't know whether you can call it dumplings, but they're made from chickpea. They're basically like what you do is you put chickpea batter through a sieve and deep fry it. So we love this with our biryanis and pulavs. So I'm just going to do that. You can get this in.
Can you spell what they're called?
It's Booni.
Okay.
They're crunchy and they're crispy, and you can actually make, like, depends on how you want to eat it. You can eat the crunchy version, or you can let this soak in the yogurt and like soft. So I'm just going to give it a good mix here. So I make my bundi raita very simple. There are 3 other ingredients that go into it: salt, a bit of Kashmiri chili powder or any mild chili powder, and chaat masala to finish it off.
Okay, so you said you use chaat masala, Kashmiri chili powder, and a little bit of salt.
Yep, that's it. So I'm just going to add a bit of Kashmiri chili powder here.
How spicy is that? Is it like a really, really spicy chili, or is it?
So Kashmiri chili powder is like really mild, but sometimes like especially this blend that I got from the Indian store, I have to put like a really tiny amount, because even though it says it was Kashmiri chili powder, it was really, really spicy even for me. So I'm just going to add a dash of it. And the good thing about this raita is you don't necessarily need spice. You can skip it if you don't want it.
I love that though, one of the things that you just said I don't want people to miss, which is even though it says something, it's still good to taste it. If it's a chili or another blend that you're used to getting, maybe it's changed a little bit. So I like that.
Yeah. So this is how it looks. So I have to put salt in, and so roughly about half a teaspoon or to taste. So I'm going to give it a good mix. Now this crispy boondi are going to soften it a bit, and then you just sprinkle a tiny bit of chaat masala on top.
Okay, so you don't mix that in. You just use
Yeah.
it at the top.
Yeah, and no, like it. So when you're serving at a party, it makes up for a nice looking decoration, right? Like it's like beautifully topped, and you can take some chili powder and top it as well. And right before serving, you just mix it
That looks great.
and just give it a good mix when you're ready to eat. And that's it. That's a very simple way of making raita, and you can not only use it in this book. There are other raitas that you can use, like a simple onion raita where you add onions to any kind of yogurt, not the vanilla one though, and some salt, some chili powder. Like I know Indian cooking is about a lot of spices, but I also sometimes find the best dishes are the ones that you make with salt and some chili powder. And like to give it the Indian touch, I add the turmeric powder, so it's like beautifully golden yellow.
Oh.
And so let's see, where else can we use this chaat powder?
And Gina
So
has
you
a question.
sure.
So if the bag says red chili powder, like the Indian spice bag, is that Kashmiri chili powder, or does it need to say specifically Kashmiri chili powder?
It needs to specifically say Kashmiri chili powder. If it's just says red chili powder, it could be medium spicy or it could be hot too. So I have found that this spiced chili powders in the Indian Indian stores are can vary so much. So it's always like you have to taste a bit and like always try half teaspoon, and if you need more then add more, so I always half the first time I use it, I always half whatever I normally use, and then I decrease the amount, and never mix two batches together. So once you're done using spice mix, when you add the new batch, just keep it separately.
I like
Okay,
that.
that's
Yeah, because Cheryl can't take very much heat, except she used to love chili paneer, which is very bizarre. She can't even black pepper she thinks is hot, but she likes chili paneer and she would put a lot of yogurt on it before she became plant-based. It's so
yeah.
strange. Okay, so now we're ready for your how else should we use chaat masala?
So it tastes great with pineapples, with corn, and like I use it with my vegetable side dishes too. So you can use it over Brussels sprout. You can use it with okra. Nowadays a lot of people are using air fryers. So think of any vegetable and you can use it. Just don't cook with it. Just sprinkle it when you're done cooking.
Okay, so like you had mentioned corn. So one of the things I do in my air fryer is I roast ears of corn in the air fryer because it caramelizes a little bit. I think you've done this too. And
Yep.
it really caramelizes some of the sugar in the corn. So usually what I do is I put a little lime juice on it and maybe I put some salt, but I would just put some lime juice, roast it in there, and then sprinkle it with chaat masala before I serve it.
Yep. And chaat masala, a small amount goes a long way, especially when you're already using lime, right? If you're not using lime, then you can use it. So I'll tell you one shortcut of making chaat masala. I know we talked about a lot of ingredients. What if you don't have anything? So the two key things that make chaat masala are the dried mango powder, amchur, and the black salt. Those are the two key flavors that, when you taste chaat masala, that's what stands out. So if you have nothing, no other spices, you can just use those two and use it on any of your dishes.
Oh, I love that. I love that because I think sometimes, and here I'll go where we're both together again. So one of the cool things is that once you get a new powder to try, you can try it on new things. But then maybe someone who's listening hasn't been to the Indian market yet. And so it can be intimidating when you're buying $30 worth of stuff to make a blend.
That's true.
Whereas every time you go, get one new thing. Like, and I don't use this in a lot of my recipes because people complain, but like black cardamom, it's just like I love black cardamom. It's such an amazing special flavor, and I feel like this mango powder is it's kind of a similar thing. So every time you get something new to you, and even coriander can be new to some people. And
Yeah.
I've had some people look at my cookbooks before and go, "Oh, cumin's in all these recipes." Yeah, but one is Mexican and one is Indian and one is, it has to do with all the other things around it too. So just remember when you get a new spice, it doesn't mean you're limited to just trying it in that cuisine as well.
That's true. And like when I'm trying some other cuisine and there are some spices or some ingredients I don't normally use, I understand that like if you're not going to use it and you don't want to stock it because after a while it goes bad, so feel free to skip it sometimes and see how it tastes. Like that's what I do. Like is this going to be a deal breaker or not? But in this case, like you can't skip the amchur powder and you can skip the black salt. Those are the key ingredients. But the rest of them, like, you can adjust.
And I love that. And I think that especially like putting some of this on pineapple, and the reason I was equating it with like a Mexican spices is there's a chili lime salt that's often used on melon and mango and pineapple. And this would be kind of a neat touch to try some different things too. And one thing I need to learn more about, and I think I'm going to be more adventurous the next time I go to the Indian market, is all the little sev things, all the little crunchy bits. I haven't really played with that, even though when I used to get chots out, they would be there. And now you've got me really curious from showing me that in the raita because I've never had it in a raita out ever.
Yeah, and you can use those save the crunchy noodles kind of a thing that you're talking about. Like what I do is like when I have leftover chana masala or chickpea curry, the kids are like bored eating that. So in the evening, like what I do is like I make a chaat out of it. I'll use the chana masala and I'll sprinkle some save over it, some tamarind chutney, and like and it tastes so good.
And you get all the little textures, and
That's true.
I like that. And I mean, chana masala is such a beautiful thing. And you've got a wonderful chana masala with black tea. So you guys go to Simmer to Slimmer to get that as well. But definitely go look at her Instagram. Um, go and sign up for her website. Everything is not plant based, everything is not vegan. But if you guys have some questions about substituting some of that stuff, you're welcome to ask me as well. But, like, I think I have probably one of the most controversial dishes that so far hasn't caused a controversy, but it's the anti-authentic dish. So I have soy curl butter chicken made with oat cream.
Awesome. I would love to try
So,
that
like,
one
how
day.
much further can you go from the original? But it's just like it's one of those things because some people are avoiding nuts now, and I've been doing a lot of things with rolled oats instead of nuts. I mean, nuts are beautiful and wonderful to use when you can. But I love this. So just remember, even if you see something that's meaty, in general, if it's something with chicken, you probably can substitute soy curls and you can still learn so much about her flavors. And she has a lot of vegan recipes naturally as well.
Yeah, Indian food is like naturally vegan and vegetarian. It's like, when you change your diet to a plant-based diet or a vegetarian diet, it's so easy to, like you said in the beginning of this show, that it's so easy to turn to Indian food for your day-to-day meals.
Well, and I think it really wakes everything up because I was definitely on the standard American diet growing up, like Cool Whip and Cheetos and hamburgers and stuff, which is funny. My mom would make this beef and noodle dish, and I would eat all the beef first so I could have the noodles the way I wanted them without the black beef. So, I mean, looking back, I can see that I was going to be vegetarian. It was inevitable. But also, then once you start getting some of these different flavors and you get exposed to different cuisines, like Ethiopian food is amazing too.
Oh my God, I love it.
And I'm sure there's some similar spices too, but the way everything's combined and the teff flatbread that's
Yes.
fermented is,
Injera. Oh my
oh, it's
God.
so delicious. And I mean, I've got to tell you, the one thing I miss the most about Indian food, well, it's Thai. I miss samosas. I got an okay substitute. I'm working on my bread skills, gluten-free bread skills, so I can get a better one. Um, but Indian bread is just what magic is made of. It's so fluffy and perfect. And my favorite was onion kulcha, like
Oh my
onion.
God, I love those. They're so indulgent though.
It's like the onions are all cooked down in like garlic and ginger. One restaurant did use ginger for sure, and I would do probably this is probably not a nice thing to do, but I love to dip it in a little bit of tamarind sauce.
Oh yes, of course. Like my
Okay,
kids do
because
it all the time. We are like huge, like our palate, like in the house, we love tamarind. We love all the tangy stuff. Apple, yeah, I miss samosas too. They are so indulgent.
it's really yummy. And one of the things I always get the clearer tamarind paste that's in like a little squeezy thing because it's easy. And then you just put the little cap on and put it in the fridge. But I often, if I'm making Thai food, I'll put a little bit of it if I don't have any kind of vegan fish sauce because that tang, it's not a one-to-one, but it still adds that tang to a lot of Thai food too that can be really nice. So, do you have anything else you want to share with us before you start your week out?
No, I'm good. Thank you for inviting me, Kathy.
Oh,
And
thank you.
it's been a pleasure being here.
It's been awesome to have you. And thank you for being willing to talk about controversial topics with no notice, which is why you're my friend. And I appreciate you. And I appreciate you coming on and sharing all of your knowledge and opinions with my audience. And I think it's really, the more we get to learn about different cultures and how people come to cook the foods they do, the better people we end up being.
Definitely.
So
And
thank you
that's
so
what
much.
makes you a better person. And that's what, made me like connect with you on so many levels, not just food, but as a human being too.
That's a great point. And and I do feel like that because I feel like I got to explore the world a little bit with food before I got to see as many different kinds of people. You know, and that's also one of the reasons why I'm always trying to get everyone to go out to their local markets that specialize in things because you'll see housewares that you don't see anywhere else. Like you can get things at the Hispanic market you can't get at the Indian market and you can't get at Kroger's. And I just find it delightful though. Like I have to admit though, like my best friend's husband and I are both like crazy for stores. So like I went to Houston to visit them. We went to the store that makes tortillas that was actually just a regular grocery store because it was Texas. We went to an Indian market and I saw some things there I hadn't seen where I live. And so like he's like me, we could spend a whole day just vacationing going to different stores like that, but I think every time I go, even if I'm just picking up a couple of things, I'm like, I don't know, I've never cooked with that bean or lentil. Let me come back and find out more about it. Or if I'm lucky, the same Indian market where the lady talked me into making my dosa batter, a lot of times, because I will look through every spice to see if I've missed anything. So I'll be there for a long time. And some like little Indian grandmother will come up and tell me a recipe. And that's my favorite part. Yeah. They're like, that poor white lady, she needs some help. And I'm like, yes, I will take your help and I will learn from you because I want to learn from everybody. Um, oh, and Gina says she can never get enough whole food plant based Indian recipes. You and me both. And And so we'll be having Anu back on if I can get her to come back on again and maybe share a different recipe. But it's just been such a pleasure. It's always a pleasure hanging out with you. It makes my day happy, and hopefully it's making all of you guys' day happy.
Same here, Kathy. I loved connecting with you again, and I loved connecting with your readers who are like watching this live right now. So you've been awesome. I loved how they asked questions and wanted clarifications. It's just it has been wonderful. Thank you so much.
Of course. Well, you have a good rest of your day, and everybody do what I always say that you probably know now. If you have even just a little bit of energy, do something nice for yourself today, even if that's take a walk, empty the dishwasher, take a long bath. If you have a little bit of extra energy, do something nice or say something nice to somebody else. It'll make all of our days better. Okay? Have an amazing week, and I will talk to you soon.